Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching third part of What If Naruto Was Executed. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Konoha had reached dusk. The earlier explosion at the Hokage Tower had put the village under lockdown once more. The explosion, while massive in terms of using a human body as a conduit, did not kill anyone but injured many and sent many to the hospital. Not surprising, given that the shrapnel used in the explosion was the many bones the human body possessed, and Kabuto's inhuman changes from personally experimenting on his form gave the man quite a few extra bones. But that didn't matter. For there were two ninjas in the shadows, in the dead of night, bearing the mark of Uzu and the Uzumaki clan on their bodies. They moved quietly and purposefully. They knew Konoha inside and out because they had been here before and knew all of the secret entrances to the village. Who were these two specific shinobi? The former Yondaime Hokage Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina were their names. These two infamous ninja were on their way to the hospital. They needed to collect some of their son's blood so that he could perform his modified Edo Tensei in a body that wasn't a puppet at all. According to Naruto's plan, their son would be able to return to his old body with Bijuu sealed inside it once more, as the two were bound to one body at all times. "I can't wait for Naruto-kun to be whole again," Kushina muttered after sneaking into the hospital with Minato. "Kushina-chan, I agree. To think that this village where we grew up would betray him. To think that those in Konoha we trusted would betray him," Minato remarked before entering the cold storage unit for blood. They are about to discover that the cost of their betrayal is extremely high. Paid for with blood in the lives of those who have caused him so much pain, Kushina stated coldly before finding what she needed and removing the blood pack from the rack at the far end of the unit and placing it in a storage scroll. They quickly left the room, but were stopped by the appearance of a slightly battered Jiraiya, Tsunade, Kakashi, and Anbu. To say the Konoha nin were taken aback would be an understatement. They knew both legendary shinobi were now alive because of Kabuto and Naruto possessing Kabuto. They knew Naruto had done something to bring them back from the Shinigami's belly, but a part of them didn't believe it. "Minato?" Jiraiya inquired as Minato scowled. "Hello there, Arrow Sannin. You haven't changed all that much. Still as pitiful as ever. It's difficult to believe I learned anything from you." Minato spat venomously at them, while Jiraiya flinched. "Minato, you're not saying that. You became Hokage as a result of my advice." Jiraiya objected before Minato vanished in front of the Sannin, throwing him and Kakashi out of a nearby window. Minato was on the trail of Jiraiya and Kakashi's downed forms before anyone could object. Kushina was in Tsunade's face, just like Minato, but instead of throwing the Senju out the window, the red-haired Uzumaki threw Tsunade through the hospital wall opposite the windows. The Anbu attempted to fight Kushina, but the chakra chains she commanded escaped her body and skewered them all mercilessly. Their bodies became stains on the wall, ceiling, and roof around her with a single flick of each chain. Kushina casually walked through the hole in the wall where Tsunade was holding her ribs where she had been hurt by the explosion at the Hokage Tower, not even noticing the display of carnage she had left behind. "Hello there, old hag." "Hello. It's been a while," Kushina commented before picking Tsunade up by the throat and hitting the slug Sannin multiple times in the ribs, knowing that was where she was hurting the most, and even more so with the Uzumaki version of the Sannin's super strength technique. "And you know what they say about that? Always strike them where it counts." Kushina. "Stoop. Pliasa." Tsunade begged before being slammed into the floor by Kushina. "Stop? As my son requested that people stop? When did they beat him up? When did they harm him? Did you cry for him as he was executed? When people cheered when he died? When did they burn his body? when his ashes were thrown to the wind. Kushina was questioned, and each question was met with a punch to the ribs. I was in a coma at the time. I couldn't assist him. Tsunade protested before being thrown hard onto the floor once more. And what about when he was a kid? If anything happened to us, we trusted you and Jiraiya to raise him. To look after him, we had faith in you, Jiraiya, and Hiruzen to make sure he was loved. And what about you? You went off to gamble, drink, and waste your life while my son's life rotted within the village's walls. Yelled an enraged Kushina, shooting his right leg all the way up vertically before slamming it down hard on Tsunade's chest with enough force to knock the woman down several floors of the hospital. With her rage temporarily subdued, Kushina dashed out of the hospital through the shattered window to meet her husband. The man stood over the battered and broken bodies of those he had once trusted to raise his son if he died. That he did. And they all failed miserably due to their stupidity and arrogance. His right hand was bloodied and had a kunai in it, but she had no idea who Minato had stabbed at the time. Kushina initially believed he had killed one of them, but changed his mind after hearing Kakashi whimper and Jiraiya move slightly. Of course, Minato had considered killing them both. Oh, I'm so tempted. But Minato was aware that Naruto had other plans for them, and that death would be merciful now. And when it came to Konoha, Naruto wasn't big on mercy. Jiraiya, we'll meet again. Kakashi. Only the next time, you and all of Konoha will be burned for your crimes against our family. Please spread the word. Konoha's time is running out, Minato remarked before he and his wife vanished in an instant. Akatsuki headquarters days later. So the loser is still alive. It stands to reason, Sasuke said with a scowl on his face. Now come on, Sasuke-kun. There's no need to go all emo here. This is a positive development. Besides, if you were in his position of rising from the dead, you wouldn't be this way. Obito said this because he saw no reason to hide behind the mask from the others now that the old Akatsuki was dead. This is due to the fact that I am a Uchiha. An A-lister. Death itself bows to my majesty. Sasuke spoke with arrogance because he knew his clan was descended from the Sage of Six Paths. As a result, he believed that all other people and clans in the world were trash meant to serve him in whatever way he saw fit. You forgot Sasuke, the Senju clan is also descended from the Sage of Six Paths, as are the Uzumaki clan. That is to say, they are also descended from that great man. Obito was challenged because he knew what Sasuke was thinking about his bloodline. They were frail. They allowed themselves to be wiped out, Sasuke remarked angrily. Perhaps, but it took the combined might of many powerful people and years of planning to accomplish. Ours, on the other hand, while Sasuke stared at him, Obito replied. Are you implying that the Uchiha are weak? You have your own clan? Obito smirked as he challenged Sasuke. Given how simple it was to kill so many people in a single night. Yes. I believe I am. Obito scowled even harder, but did not retaliate, with the Uchiha in front of him. Obito was stronger than Sasuke, arrogant or not. It was pointless to engage in a physical confrontation with him. Any further thoughts were cut short by Jugo fidgeting and Karen turning to look at the massive statue, which was currently holding 8 of the 9 Bijuu. It was pulsing slightly, and you could see small waves of the various chakras stirring within the statue's eyes. Indeed, the various colored forms of chakra from the Bijuu were moving around almost as if they were alive, and the statue itself began to shake slightly. Something is wrong with the statue, Karen observed as she felt the many different emotions each Bijuu was emitting in the statue, which was gradually overwhelming her. I'm feeling it as well. Something is causing them to agitate and want to erupt, Jugo added, while his own unstable power was also stirring, and not in a good way. Nonsense. The Bijuu are nothing more than beasts. Mindless beasts made up of chakra. They don't have a personality or thoughts to call their own, Obito scowled before turning to look at the statue with his Rinnegan and Sharingan eyes. His eyes confirmed that the Bijuu within the massive statue were indeed moving in their ethereal chakra forms. Almost violently moving around. Like wild animals attempting to break free from their confinement. But Obito would not have it. They were beasts, and they had no right to object to his actions. They were part of a larger scheme. One that would keep Rin alive and allow him to be with her indefinitely. Still, he couldn't figure out how the Bijuu were able to move in the statue when they had previously been so docile. What was going on? What was causing them to behave in this manner? And how come he couldn't stop them with his Sharingan? Uzu at the time. How do you feel, son? Kushina asked as she saw her only son in his restored body walk over to the mirror and examine himself. While his body was mostly the same, Naruto had aged it to match what it would have been if Konoha hadn't betrayed him. His hair remained spiky and blonde. His father's hair, for example. But he added some red to it with his power to honor his Uzumaki clan ancestors. His eyes were blue, but there was fire within them, indicating that a part of him was still very much Sauron. That if you disobeyed him, you would face the wrath of the Dark Lord of old, who had previously brought Middle-earth to its knees. Mother, I'm fine. In some ways, I feel complete. At least physically whole. Just not in the way you think. No, not yet, Naruto replied calmly before looking down at the Ring of Power, which was now secured in his right hand's ring finger. Kurama was now complete, but was temporarily imprisoned within the Ring of Power until the adjustment of such a merging of the two halves of the Bijuu was completed. Even now, the fox was resting from the merger, his power coursing through the ring with the same symbols mixed with text that burned brightly in its predecessor. When will you go looking for Hinata and your son? Kushina asked, Naruto's eyes softening. Soon. No, not yet. But not for long. The Akatsuki must be the first to perish. Naruto knew that the Akatsuki had more freedom to move because they did not follow the rules of other countries when entering or leaving them. Konoha didn't either most of the time, but even a shinobi village had to pretend to, and were more constrained by the rules. It all makes sense. Is this the reason you sent Minato, Hashirama, Tobirama, and Mito to aim? Kushina inquired, and Naruto nodded. Yes, Naruto said quietly before turning to face his mother. I could have joined them. Why didn't you let me do it? Kushina was perplexed. Because I have a question for you. Only you can answer this question, Kushina frowned as Naruto responded. Is there a question? What is it about? Kushina was perplexed. I've done a lot since my first death. Things that are heinous. Cruel creatures. I turned my pain, hatred, and darkness into a weapon. And now that I've returned to the world that had shunned me, I intend to conquer it now. I intend to bring her to her knees and usher in an age of order unseen since before the 5 shinobi villages existed. So, as your son, my question is this. Do you believe in what I've done and what I'm about to do is the right path? That I should seize this world for the sake of long-term peace? Kushina smiled at Naruto as he asked. Yes. I believe you should. Naruto has already caused enough pain in the world. Since the formation of the 5 shinobi villages, there have been more wars, battles, fighting, and deaths. Each country now has its own shinobi village or hires one from another. They are all competing for more power. The daimyo of the country may answer to the Kage and shinobi village, but the daimyos themselves do little to keep an eye on them. Trusting the Kage of the shinobi village in question to run it competently rather than having some proper oversight. According to what I've seen of the world, the majority of daimyos are lazy and don't keep an eye on the shinobi villages. Things might be different if they did that to ensure that the appointed Kage does not ruin their reputation, Kushina replied, and Naruto nodded. Kages are similar to children with toys. Unsupervised children are left to their own devices by their stupid and irresponsible parents, the daimyos. Meanwhile, the daimyos are hoping that the shinobi village's Kage will be held accountable. If not, what do they care if they don't see it? Ignorance must be pure bliss for them, Naruto remarked coldly, while Kushina nodded. Until someone comes along and makes them open their eyes, Kushina added, Naruto now grinning. And, my dear mother, that someone will be me. When the Akatsuki are gone, I have an important task for you to complete that must be done with the utmost discretion, Naruto stated as he ascended Uzu Tower and breathed in the fresh air of his mother's homeland. It was finally time. It was time to summon those who would become his new wraiths and serve him until the end of time. Naruto slowly raised his right arm vertically straight, closed it tightly into a fist, and began speaking in an ancient tongue learned during his time in Middle-earth. He was putting his will, might, and strength into the ring of power, which was now glowing brightly. Storm clouds formed over Uzu Tower as Naruto began chanting heavily in Mordor's ancient tongue, ignoring the sounds of lightning shooting down from the sky, shooting down at the tower, and at times shooting directly at him. But he didn't seem to mind. He has no reason to. It didn't bother him. He would never be weak again. Never again would he let something as insignificant as severing the ring of power from his grip be his undoing. Never, ever again. In the land of Uzu, near the whirlpools. One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and one ring to bind them in the darkness. In the land of Uzu, near the whirlpool. Chanted Naruto as he reached out to the other Bijuu via Kurama in the ring of power, urging them to break free from the statue that had imprisoned them and serve him instead. He could tell they were being drawn to the one ring. It was felt by everyone in Uzu. The requirement. They were drawn to staring at Naruto from the top of Uzu Tower while repeating the chant. The Uzumaki clan, the Dark Samurai, and Doku himself were all in awe of his power. The amount of power, sheer will, and fortitude behind Naruto's actions had been intense. Naruto's actions had practically jolted the entire island. Indeed, the entire top of Uzu Tower was seen to have a ball of chakra surrounding the building's tips before shooting into the heavens for all to see from every corner of the land. It was a foreshadowing of Uzu's return. It was a signal to the rest of the world that the Uzumaki clan had recovered from near extinction. It was a sign to all of his enemies that their days in this world were numbered in terms of survival. It was a sign that the flames of war were engulfing everyone in his path. Aim at the time. What the hell? Exclaimed Suigetsu as he noticed the statue holding the Bijuu cracking in various places. This is a disaster. The statue is crumbling. Jugo exclaimed while hearing the Ring of Power's call and shaking in fear because he had no idea why he could hear such a call in the first place. We need to get out of here. Exclaimed Karen as she heard her family's call in Uzu through the Ring of Power. The command from the one wielding it was practically compelling her to abandon the Akatsuki and return to the ancestral homeland of the Uzumaki. Karen sensed his presence, power, and even his very being shining down on her. Karen could feel this person looking at her with a single eye whenever she closed her eyes, and his will pressing down with unimaginable strength. This should never happen. Why is this happening? Obito wondered as he attempted to use his Sharingan on the chakra of the Bijuu, attempting to break free from the statue in the hope that his power would stop them. Only to discover that it wasn't working. At all. What is the problem? I thought you said the Sharingan could control and suppress the Bijuu. Demanded Sasuke, trying his luck with his eyes in the hope that they would be strong enough to complete the task. Only to discover that his luck in trying was no better. The two Uchiha were so focused on the statue that they didn't notice Jugo, Karen, or even Suigetsu had fled the room. They recognized the telltale signs of when something was not worth dying for, and this situation fit the bill. While the trio was running, they noticed a single battered woman with blue hair in a cell with a small smile on her face. Konan is her name. She had fought Obito with all of her might. She lost, of course, but she made Obito work for it, costing him his Sharingan in the process. In exchange, he kept her alive and took the Rinnegan from Nagato's body to make up for the loss. Konan believed that the dream of peace that she, Yahiko, and Nagato had cherished for so long would perish with her. That was all lost to the ways of corruption that the shinobi system had instilled within itself, where the few ruled over many but cared nothing for them or anyone but themselves. How a few desired more power and sacrificed the innocent lives of others for their own guilty pleasures in life of living comfortably in their so-called seats of power. It was the reason why the Akatsuki's plan, hatched through pain, had included the 9 Bijuu in the first place. Take away a shinobi village's main power and gradually but steadily force them into submission with the very Bijuu they used to make their weapons. Only for the situation to quickly spiral out of control. Members are being eliminated. Nagato's death revealed the truth behind the lies and false promises. Konan was broken to the point where she wanted to die. Or at least she did until she heard Naruto's command echoed from the top of Uzu Tower and realized he had truly returned. The Uzumaki clan's true leader. The true leader intended to bring peace. The dream had not died. She just needed to get out of here to see it through. Shit. What is she so happy about? Suigetsu asked, staring at the smiling woman, who gave each of them a look before stopping to look at Karen with knowing eyes. Jugo. Suigetsu. Open the cell door. We're all leaving here and heading straight for Uzu, commanded Karen, while Suigetsu looked at her as if she were insane and Jugo obeyed. And who the hell made you the boss? Enraged Suigetsu. Baka. You already know what's going to happen. Even you can feel it, even in your pea-sized brain floating around in your head. Would you like to be in its path? No? Then do as I say this one stupid time and simply follow me to Uzu, where we will be safe from the wrath of the person who is driving all the Bijuu in that room insane. Karen exclaimed to his face, not in the mood for one of his moods. Oh. When you put it that way. Lead on. Suigetsu said as Karen assisted Jugo in getting Konan out of the cell and the four ran out of the base as if their lives depended on it. I'm not sure I understand. It's as if an outside force is calling them, and they're obeying the command rather than my own. Replied Obito before the statue's belly shattered and the Bijuu chakra of Shukaku shot out of it. The Nibi comes next. Hachibi. The Gobi Desert. And the rest of the tailed beasts. Each of them had shot up to the room's ceiling, violently breaking through it and howling loudly with rage that echoed deep within the souls of their chakra bodies. Long streams of potent chakra danced through the sky as they headed for Uzu, the front of these streams of different color chakra revealing the Bijuu's faces. Of course, given the speed at which they were moving, it would be difficult to see those faces and determine what they were. It wasn't long before the 8 chakra beams dancing around each other arrived in Uzu and headed straight for Uzu Tower. When they arrived at the base of the massive tower, all 8 moved up it before shooting past it and swarming around the top. Each chakra line from each Bijuu descended on Naruto, or more precisely, his ring, one by one. After each Bijuu entered the ring of power, the jewel itself began to pulsate strongly, until all of the tailed beasts had entered the circular object around Naruto's ring finger. Before an even bigger explosion of chakra shot up into the heavens for all to see. Konoha right now. Danzo bit down on a scream. His hidden arm and his bandaged head, where his implanted eye was located, throbbed in pain. He could feel blood leaking out of his eye, where the Sharingan was, and those grafted onto his arm even now. Danzo's arm felt like it was splintering like wood, causing him more pain with each passing second. Is this something the brat is doing? How? How is this possible? Danzo exclaimed as he gazed out the window of the Hokage tower at the power shooting into the sky. The ground shook violently around Konoha. The rain that had been falling for well over a decade became heavier, lightning output increased, and some of the buildings in the village collapsed. It was as if the heavens above were still cursing Konoha and him personally for his previous actions against the vile Kyuubi Jinchuriki. The old war hawk for a Hokage glared at the power he desired and felt should be his simply because Danzo desired it. All that god-like power off in the distance, and he had no control over it. What blasphemy! He held the title of Hokage, Konoha's emperor. Here, his word was law. This power is his and his alone. The pain in his body rippled through him once more, and more blood drained from the many Sharingan eyes his body possessed. Danzo had no idea how Naruto was able to do this to him, but he wouldn't let it go on and knew exactly what to do. He planned to orchestrate events so that an army marched on Uzu and crushed them. Your orders, Danzo-sama? A root Anbu inquired after the Hokage motioned for one of his subordinates to approach. Send a message to the remaining 4 Kages of their shinobi villages, requesting a Kage summit. It's past time to bring Uzu to the forefront of the world's attention and remind the Kyuubi Jinchuriki that the Uzumaki clan is no longer welcome here, commanded Danzo, continuing to stare in the direction of Uzu. Yes, Danzo-sama, the root Anbu replied before departing to carry out his orders. Would you like to fight me, brat? I have more years of experience than you have years to live. Danzo exclaimed as he needed one of his medic nins to treat his injuries. Konoha Medical Center. Tsunade was lying in a hospital bed, whimpering as a result of the pain coursing through her body, which surprised the doctors and nurses because she had pain medication running through her system and pain shouldn't be an issue. What they didn't realize was that the power generated by Naruto's actions was reacting to the Uzumaki and even Senju blood in her veins. It was as if this power had ignited her blood and was burning away at her very being. Why? Why am I in so much pain? What is going on with me? Why is my blood burning at me in this way? Why do I feel as if an unseen force of nature is attacking my very soul right now? Tsunade thought with her eyes closed as she tried to fight the pain, which only intensified the more she fought. Shizune exclaimed, Tsunade-sama. When she saw her medical teacher cry out in pain and arch upward to the point where the human body shouldn't be like that for long. Senju Tsunade, you've forgotten about yourself. You've forgotten what it's like to be loyal to your bloodline. You've forgotten about your ancestors and the legacy they left behind. But you will remember today, and you will cry for your years of betrayal. You will cry before approaching me and pleading for my forgiveness. Naruto's voice in her head exclaimed, with a giant eye wreathed in flames staring down at her form within her mind. Naruto? How? What are you doing to me? Why are you doing this to me? Tsunade wondered as tears streamed down her face and she saw the giant eye from within her mind. You understand why I'm doing this. You supported Danzo.
You supported traitors.
You are no better than Uchiha Madara, and you are no more honorable than Orochimaru. Tsunade, you will soon learn that treachery for siding with my enemies comes at a cost. A very large and steep price. And you will pay it one way or another. Exclaimed Naruto with his eye increasing in size within her mind, and Tsunade could practically feel the heat from it burning her very flesh. I apologize, Naruto. Tsunade thought to herself, I thought. Before his very presence overwhelmed her and she fell to her knees within her mind. You did not consider. You simply accepted it because you lack a spine. Despite your bravado about being the strongest kunoichi in the world, you are nothing more than a whiny spoiled brat hiding behind pathetic excuses. Naruto yelled as the woman in front of him sobbed even harder. I know. I understand, and I apologize. I'm so sorry. Tsunade thought as the giant eye in front of her seemed to grow in size and the power behind it became too much for the woman to bear. You have no idea what the world is about. But you will in time. Tsunade, you and the rest of Konoha will be aware of my wrathful hand. It will be swift, incomprehensible, and, most importantly, merciless. Naruto exclaimed before leaving her mind, and the woman herself was lost deep within the darkness of her own mind, crying like a small child. Tsunade-sama? Shizune asked, seeing the woman's crying and look of pain had increased the entire time, only to calm down a little. Naruto. I'm so sorry, Tsunade said quietly, causing Shizune to freeze in shock at hearing her sensei say those words. What makes her say that? I thought she hated him for everything that happened to Konoha after his birth? Shizune wondered, concerned by what her mentor had just said aloud. Tsunade had returned to Konoha shortly after the Kyuubi's attack, contrary to popular belief. Even if it was just to confirm for herself that Kushina had died at the hands of the Bijuu during the attack. When Hiruzen explained in his own words about Kushina's death, Naruto being her child, and Jinchuriki, the distraught Senju woman became enraged with the outcome. She quickly left Konoha with the intention of never returning to the village again. What's the point? Her entire family had died. Dan had died. Nawaki had died. Kushina and Minato were no longer alive. Their son was a Jinchuriki who blamed the fox for their deaths. Tsunade thought the boy could rot in the village and Hiruzen could do whatever he wanted with the brat. She didn't care if Konoha hated or loved Naruto. It was their choice, so let them deal with any fallout and keep her out of the final outcome. That was her first thought until many years later, when Jiraiya appeared and had the audacity to bring Naruto along for whatever stupid reason the Toad Sage had for doing so. Shizune knew how her mentor felt about Naruto, and given the drunken rants that went on from time to time, Shizune had found it difficult to keep the blonde woman from lashing out until Naruto had actually provoked her into a fight. Tsunade's drunken state at the time had left her arrogant, and she chose to fight him with just one finger over an entire fist packed with enough power to explode his thick skull. Tsunade admitted to Jiraiya and Shizune that she wished this had happened while Naruto was on a mission with his team, but she held her tongue because Konoha still needed the damn brat. Tsunade awoke from her coma to learn that Naruto had been killed, and she felt that those she loved could be at peace knowing that the Bijuu within the boy was gone forever. Despite Danzo becoming the next Hokage, future threats and a prophecy ended and all was well in her life. Allowing him to handle the paperwork gave her more freedom to get hammered and gamble to her heart's content. Nightmares had begun to plague her by this point. Tsunade was visited during her sleep by those she loved, none of whom were there to embrace the woman as she had expected. They had instead condemned her. I despised her. Called her a betrayal of everything they held sacred, including family, and for abandoning Naruto when she knew what was going to happen to him deep down. Tsunade had nightmares for years about her family condemning her and calling her everything under the sun that had anything to do with the definition of a traitor. Shizune had tried to calm her sensei's mind, telling Tsunade that it was just some lingering guilt she shouldn't have, and to let such feelings go. But now that she was weak, and Naruto had returned to the world with incredible power at his disposal, these things, along with himself, had entered her mind full force. They had infiltrated her mind, shattered the strong front she had put up for herself and others, and reduced the once proud woman to a sniveling little girl. Shizune was actually quite terrified. With Jiraiya on MT. Myoboku. Jiraiya was not in the hospital, as Tsunade had been. No. He'd gone to Mount Myoboku after his old student had beaten the crap out of him, and he'd gone to inform the Toads of the situation. Not surprisingly, the Toads discovered it when the Toad summoning contract revealed Minato's name was not crossed off as it had been when the man died. Not only that, but Naruto's name was back without being crossed out, indicating that he was still alive. Seeing an opportunity, the Sannin attempted to reverse summon Naruto to the mountain in order to kill him or weaken him with a few strategically placed seals. But Jiraiya quickly discovered that the Toad contract wouldn't work for him for some strange reason, and he became increasingly frustrated with the situation. He could only conclude that Naruto used his newly acquired power to nullify the reverse summons. We must take action against Gamabunta. Elder. Pa. Ma. You must realize that we need to counter Naruto now, while we still have some time. Jiraiya objected while attempting to persuade the Toads to assist Konoha in going to war against Naruto. Time? When do you think we'll have Jiraiya? The truth is that we don't have any. Even if there was time to counter Naruto's plans, it would be futile, Pa responded as he noticed Jiraiya frown. So why not? It can't be because of Minato, can it? Jiraiya inquired, while the Toads as a whole scowled at him. Jiraiya, you have no idea what you and Konoha have done. Even now, you believe there is still time to oppose Naruto and his plans to unite the world under his banner. Through war, to unite the world and bring peace to it. A war you instigated against Konoha and those who would oppose him solely because he was a Jinchuriki who refused to be controlled by anyone. It was bad enough that you ignored your godson, but using him as a tool, stealing from him whenever possible, and then assisting in his death goes against everything we taught you. Jiraiya frowned as the elder exclaimed in a rare display of life and rage. His sensei was me. I should be able to take advantage of him. The only reason I didn't do it to Minato was because Kushina saw what I was planning and refused to let me, Jiraiya mumbled before being smacked on the head by an enraged Ma. Baka. You should have acted like a sensei instead of a pervert who only cares about his research, which is spying on women in hot springs and baths. Gamabunta screamed angrily at Jiraiya, because the giant toad boss cared about the boy and was saddened when he died. Hey. All of my devoted readers value my research. Without it, my books would be worthless, and I would have to return to my previous failure, Icha. Everything else takes a back seat to it. This includes any students I may be training at the time. The super pervert's way is superior to all others. Jiraiya shot back before cowering in front of every member of the Toad clan seated around him. Shut up. Yelled every Toad at once, causing the mountain to shake. Jiraiya, we've had enough of you and your perverted ways. The only reason we didn't remove you sooner was due to a lack of time. We couldn't have entered the human world without you. We weren't about to wait for someone else to discover Myoboku by chance, as you did on a stupid whim. Not with the likes of Manda and others attempting to gain a strong foothold in it with the assistance of those like Orochimaru or his assistant Kabuto. However, the power of Naruto, his allies, and those we would be proud to call summoners has returned. Finally, Gamabunta responded to Jiraiya's surprise. You're kidding, right? You're leaving me out? Are you terminating your contract with me? You have no legal standing. Jiraiya yelled angrily before being pinned down by Gamabunta. We have every right to be. You, who abused our information. You, who betrayed our trust by disclosing information about the prophecies prophesied by the Elder. You, who betrayed your student and his son by abandoning him in a village that despised him. You are not fit to be a sage. You are not fit to be our summoner. You are unworthy of being a member of our family, Gamabunta stated as Jiraiya growled angrily at him. I'll do everything in my power to keep Konoha at the top, even if it means doing things you consider morally questionable. I am the gallant Jiraiya, and I will not be stopped from defending my home by some pathetic brat or his allies. Jiraiya stated as he tried but failed to flee. Jiraiya, you still can't see it. You have eyes but are unable to see. You have ears, but you can't hear. You have no idea how to feel, to perceive, to comprehend, to broaden one's mind beyond its limitations in order to see things beyond normal reasoning. We showed you how, but you never reached your full potential. No doubt because of your vain, greedy ways, and the belief that it would keep you from spying on women. Ma remarked while staring at him. Jiraiya, oh Jiraiya. There is so much potential. However, you did not unlock it. Choosing physical pleasures over spiritual connections with the cosmos and beyond. You were many things, but your most notable quality was that of a fool. Even now, you believe Konoha has the strength and power to defeat Naruto. There are no such people. While giving Jiraiya a knowing look, the elder Toad whispered. You're going to side with him. Join him in his fight against Konoha and all those who oppose him. You charlatans. Without Konoha, Minato, or myself, you'd be wasting away in Filthy Mountain for days on end eating all those disgusting bugs. Jiraiya yelled angrily at the elder. Jiraiya, don't take it personally. But we've felt Naruto's power, and even without the most recent developments, we know that there can be no victory against his incredible power. We will not let this mountain or the Toad Clan burn because of Konoha and your arrogance in thinking you are somehow protected by Kami, the elder Toad responded. Konoha has and will always have Kami's protection and his light shining down on us. We are the most powerful of the major 5 villages. We've survived 3 shinobi wars and come out on top each time. We've repelled one enemy after another, and we'll keep repelling him. Jiraiya was challenged while the elder Toad shook his head. Jiraiya is not present. No, you don't. Konoha survived because the Uzumaki and Senju clans sacrificed their lives for him. They demonstrated loyalty, trust, and love for a village that did not reciprocate when they needed assistance, Jiraiya sneered as the elder Toad countered. If they couldn't see their clans dying out because the village as a whole was doing it, then it's clear they were too stupid and naive to believe they deserved to exist in this world. Exclaimed Jiraiya angrily, his own hidden contempt for Konoha's founding clans. Jiraiya, like Minato, was an orphan as a child. He had never met his parents and was teased and taunted on occasion for not knowing them. Some would argue that he was simply a bastard child, the result of a nymphomaniac's desire to constantly peep on women. Others were kinder, saying he was the son of 2 great Konoha shinobi, both of whom died while on a mission and defended Konoha to the end. Jiraiya wasn't sure which to believe, but he tried to live up to the latter's expectations by becoming a skilled shinobi. The issue was that most, if not all, orphans in a shinobi village received little to no training, teachers, or assistance when it came to learning at the academy. They were the academy's dead lasts, and as such, no one thought of them as anything special. Not even their own Junin sensei was immune. This irritated Jiraiya even more because his sensei was Sarutobi Hiruzen, the future Sandaime Hokage of Konoha. The man was always partial to Orochimaru, who came from a shinobi family that many would consider middle class, and thus was well liked. Prior to his parents' deaths, Orochimaru always got the best stuff, the best books, and the best of everything his parents could give him. Their deaths had no effect on him. In fact, the snake Sannin had been a learning genius and a prodigy in his own right. Hiruzen spent a lot of time with Orochimaru, grooming him to be a great shinobi of Konoha while leaving Jiraiya and even Tsunade in the dust at times. Tsunade didn't mind because her clan was planning on teaching her on the side, but for a genin like Jiraiya, it hurt because he didn't have a family or a clan to train him unless they worked together. Even then, it was team training, and the exercises didn't mesh well unless they were in a life or death situation. So Jiraiya did the majority, if not all, of his training on his own. Trying to make do with what he had, he used what money he had saved to get his own ninja equipment, an apartment, and whatever else his mission pay would provide. Of course, he would have had more if his medical bills from the beatings women gave him for peeping in the hot springs hadn't piled up. Or the time he spied on Tsunade and she literally beat him to within an inch of his life before throwing him into the hospital to have his injuries treated while wearing a full body cast. Jiraiya's dislike for the Senju and the Uzumaki clan grew during that time alone in solitude while in such a state after Hiruzen paid him a visit with a look of displeasure. The Senju clan was beloved for their well-known history, with Hashirama and Tobirama serving as Konoha's Hokages. Meanwhile, the Uzumaki clan had provided fuinjutsu as well as financial assistance to the village as a result of the First Shinobi War, and had planned to help with some additional funding on the side at the time. They were such powerful clans in terms of wealth, skill, and power, and they were always showing off their abilities in whatever they did. They were always bragging about how they did it, but they could never share the wealth of such power for one reason or another. He knew that if he had such power from either side, he could do wondrous things with it, and everyone would admire him for doing so. The gallant Jiraiya would finally be treated with the respect he deserved, as well as all the women his perverted mind, if not hands, could handle. So Jiraiya studied fuinjutsu and demonstrated a genuine talent for it. Not quite on the same level as Uzumaki, but pretty close in his mind. One of the reasons he wanted to date and eventually marry Tsunade was because of the Senju clan. This way, he could at least claim to be a member of a great clan like hers and tell others as much when speaking to high-ranking nobles, daimyos, and other powerful people. Unfortunately, Tsunade did not like him like that. In fact, because of his perverted tendencies, she had been the polar opposite of him and had fallen for some sissy boy named Dan. It was bad enough that Tsunade turned him down at every turn, but to love that feminine idiot, who came across as a proper gentleman, and tell her how much he liked her ideas for a medic nin on each assigned team was just pathetic. Jiraiya thought women preferred manly men. Men who could puff out their chests, beat up the bad guys, and smile with sparkling teeth while flaunting their manly pecs in a way that made women swoon or squeal with delight. Not skinny sissy boys who gently smile at women in a friendly manner. Ha! Jiraiya had used his spy network to have Dan removed for this reason. If the gallant Jiraiya couldn't have Tsunade or her clan in his pocket through a romantic relationship, he could make sure no one else did. Furthermore, the Senju clan had shrunk to Nawaki and Tsunade by that point, with the former having died during a mission. If it hadn't been for the state of the war at the time, the woman would have been forced into an arranged marriage to produce more Senju. Jiraiya had wanted their sensei to set it up so she would marry him, but Tsunade was too depressed over Dan's death to even consider it. Something that irritated Jiraiya because it appeared Dan's memory would survive his death and the Toad Sannin's action in removing him was for naught. Tsunade was unaware of his involvement in this. Not at all. Hiruzen and Orochimaru both knew, but both were dead, and the other would never be believed due to his own lying ways and a history of deception. Even if Orochimaru was still alive today to tell the story, Tsunade would never believe him, and there was no evidence to back him up. It makes no difference what you think, Jiraiya. You are no longer our summoner as of right now. Sennin Moto cannot be used from now on. You and the rest of Konoha are on your own from now on, and will receive no assistance from any summons. Consider that Konoha shinobi's contracts with various animals are now null and void. declared the Elder Toad before the Toad clan took away Jiraiya's ability to use his Sennin Moto and returned him to Konoha. Jiraiya was given another beating for being the total lying bastard that he was on the inside. Uzu Tower right now. Naruto was standing in the heart of Uzu Tower. His form was strong, tall, powerful, and most importantly, godly. 9 people were wrapped in dark cloth and armor around him. They were all unique in some way, but they all had one thing in common. They were all Bijuus. They all had at least one or more tails. Each of them had heard their new master's call, had sensed the strength of his will. They all kneeled together. Prior to their deaths, each of the 9 Bijuu in their current state chose to honor their previous hosts by adopting their facial appearance and overall height. Shikaku and Kurama were the only exceptions. Shikaku's features had taken on the appearance of the very old monk, who had once been Sabaku no Gaara's Jinchuriki predecessor. Of course, Shukaku had made the face appear young because he didn't want to appear too old in front of the other Bijuu. Kurama, on the other hand, combined Minato's facial features while incorporating Mito's eye color into his crimson ones. Kurama had also decided to keep the crimson vibrancy of Kushina's own hair while keeping the hair itself short but spiky like Naruto's. "Who do you serve?" Naruto inquired as each Bijuu kneeled before him with their heads bowed. "Uzumaki Naruto," exclaimed all 9 Bijuu at the same time. "Good. My wraiths, the time has come. The time has come to put an end to the world's pain, suffering, and chaos. It is time to restore order. It is time for someone to seize power and rule with an iron fist. I will make certain that the vile creatures who ruled before me understand their place in it and that their days are numbered. You 9 wraiths and Bijuu in front of me are now the enforcers of my will. You will kill everyone who opposes me. Understand?" demanded Naruto, as the 9 Bijuu nodded as they stood as one, seeing the burning fire within the man's eyes. The 9 Bijuu were certain of one thing. For Konoha, there would be no dawn. Akatsuki HQ right now. Jugo and the others have run away from Sasuke. They also took my prisoner. Your so-called subordinates aren't as loyal as we first thought, Obito remarked, frowning at the hole in the base's ceiling. They will be dealt with properly the next time I see them, Obito, Sasuke said, internally fuming at the betrayal those fools had committed. Good. In the meantime, we're going to pay Uzu a visit and reclaim what is rightfully ours from the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, Obito said, his eyes narrowing and widening in surprise as he looked to his right. Why? Because 4 of the most powerful ninjas from the past were emerging from the shadows to confront him and Sasuke. This is not possible. Minato-sensei is still alive? And so are Hashirama and Tobirama. Obito thought as he narrowed his eyes at the newcomers, while Sasuke appeared bored. Good day, Obito. It's been a long time, Minato remarked, while Obito gave him a small scowl. Good day, sensei. Yes, it has been a while. How long has it been? Obito replied, must be at least 2 decades. While the others looked at him and then at Sasuke. Is this the Uchiha you fought years ago, Minato? And who exactly is this? Madara's doppelganger? Tobirama inquired as Sasuke scowled even more. Be careful with your tone, Senju. You are in the presence of a Uchiha elite. 2 Uchiha elite. Exclaimed Sasuke, while Tobirama was unimpressed. In many ways, he reminds me of Madara, Hashirama. Still, they both lack the man's power, and it's clear that these 2 are just hollow shells of his legacy, Tobirama observed, as both Uchiha bristled slightly at the remark when Hashirama nodded in agreement. Indeed. Madara was the embodiment of power. These two could never surpass him no matter how hard they tried, Hashirama added, his tone tinged with pity, which irritated Obito, if not Sasuke even more. Being pitied by others was something a Uchiha despised. Especially if it was a Senju's pity. I sense a lot of darkness in both of them. While not as intense as Madara's, their hatred is fit for Uchiha. They could never stand in the light for very long, if at all, Mito observed as Obito and Sasuke became enraged by the insult from the Uzumaki woman. I must admit that I am intrigued as to how you four are still alive and well despite the fact that you should all be dead. I know the Kyuubi Jinchuriki is to blame, but my eyes tell me that you are not an Edo Tensei body. At least not the one I'm aware of being done by Orochimaru. You are overly active. Too lifelike to be mere puppets of the Jinchuriki I intend to find and kill once I have extracted the fox from him, Obito said, hoping to enrage Minato and cause him to act rashly. Obito was wishing Kushina was there. Her rage was exactly what was required in this situation to tip the scales in his favor. My son has accomplished a lot in his short life. You wouldn't believe it. Things that would make you fear him if you only knew what I know now. While I disagree with most of his actions, I understand his motivations and desire for vengeance. Unlike you and Uchiha Sasuke, my son will succeed in his plans to crush Konoha and all those who support the village, Minato replied coldly at the end, making Obito blink in confusion because he had never heard the Yondaime Hokage speak that way about the village. I see. So you discovered your village isn't the grand place you once thought it was, I take it? Obito asked, his scowl deepening. Let's just say my eyes are now wide open, and my son revealed the truth that had been hidden in the shadows to me. He knows them quite well, Minato replied, while Sasuke scoffed. Who is that loser? He's worthless. Just a weak thing who couldn't even die with dignity all those years ago, Sasuke said arrogantly, dismissing the 4 cage-level shinobi in front of him. That so-called nothing is my son, and that massive blast of power you no doubt felt earlier? The one who summoned all the Bijuu from this shattered statue. He was the one. Naruto. That was done by my son. So be careful what you say about him being nothing, you little brat. Said Minato, as Obito and Sasuke were taken aback. He did it? Impossible. Nobody possesses such power. Not even Madara could tame all the Bijuu at once with his Sharingan. Obito exclaimed in surprise. That loser conjured up that much power. No. I refuse to believe such a. Nobody could do such a thing. Raged Sasuke as he watched Naruto not only rise from the dead, but also gain a new level of power. It doesn't matter. You 4 are strong, but the Rinnegan gives me an advantage over you all, Obito said as Sasuke activated his Sharingan. You, Uchiha, have always been thieves. Taking something that does not belong to you. Jealousy drove you to murder those you couldn't steal from. You are truly a cursed clan. Tobirama remarked angrily, your bloodline is a stain on the legacy of the Sage of Six Paths, with Obito giving him a glare. Enough babbling. It's about time I finally crush all of you before going after the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Exclaimed Obito as he charged forward to engage Minato and Tobirama in combat. Looks like I'm going to get the old Senju fossil and his ugly Uzumaki slut for a wife, Sasuke remarked as Hashirama's face turned angry and furious. His manners are far worse than Madara's, Mito observed, her eyes narrowing. Yes. Though Madara knew long ago not to insult you whether I was present or not. This carbon copy knockoff hasn't had the privilege of learning why. I think we should do the right thing before we kill this Uchiha and educate the boy on why Madara only insulted you once and only once during his life, Hashirama replied, while Sasuke was unimpressed. Agreed. Mito said before the two vanished from Sasuke's sight, even with the Sharingan on, and struck the Uchiha together in the gut. What? How could they move so quickly that my eyes couldn't track them? Wondered Sasuke before being pummeled viciously and ruthlessly by the combined might of the married couple from two different clans. It wasn't widely known, but Madara had only insulted Mito once, shortly after she married Hashirama. The man had had a bad day. One of a long list of them within a few months of his departure from Konoha. Mito had accidentally run into Madara one day and apologized to the man because it was her fault. Before shoving the woman against a nearby wall, Madara called her a spineless red-haired bitch who couldn't be a kunoichi to save her life or the clan she came from. That had been Madara's oversight. When it came to the people around her, Mito was normally cool and collected. But if there was one thing you never did when you were with Mito, it was insult in Uzumaki woman's profession, or insult in Uzumaki's own clan. Because, after Madara had done all of that, Mito, in her own moment of rage, retaliated by grabbing the offending arm and throwing him into the nearest training ground. Before Madara realized what had happened after stumbling to his feet after the fall to the ground, the one who had thrown him here was upon him and began to beat him within an inch of his life. Smashing his armor, breaking his bones in multiple places, and treating the Uchiha as her personal training dummy. Hashirama had heard about the fight while in his office doing the infamously evil task of paperwork. Fearing for his wife, Hashirama arrived on the scene, only to discover that his concerns for Mito were unfounded. Of course, the Senju was well aware that his lovely wife was no pushover. She was an Uzumaki, after all, and one of the strongest in her clan to this day. But, fighting Uchiha Madara was only done if one had a death wish. To say the least, what Hashirama and Tobirama witnessed, after Tobirama himself arrived on the scene, was jaw-dropping. Mito stood over Madara's broken body, her hair only a few stray hairs out of place, her hands' knuckles now bloody, and her eyes had a slightly crazed look to them. Tobirama thought the woman was scarier than a combined army of Iwa, Kumo, and Kiri shinobi. To Hashirama, seeing his wife beat his rival Madara into the ground like the Uchiha was a child filled him with shock and awe. In fact, the mere sight of Mito beating the crap out of Madara made him love her even more. When it was all over, Mito wiped the blood from her fingers, straightened her red hair, smoothed out her kimono, and walked out of the crater on the ground like it was nothing. And, just to add insult to injury, Mito stopped walking, turned to face the battered Uchiha, and whispered two simple words. Uchiha puny. And now, in a way, history was repeating itself, as Sasuke was being badly beaten by both Kage-level shinobi. The Uchiha attempted to fight back with his sword, lightning affinity, and, of course, his Sharingan eyes, which he learned from Orochimaru. But neither of his opponents were allowing him to use any of his abilities. Hashirama was the Shoden Hokage and defeated Madara in a one-on-one battle for the title of Konoha Hokage. He was the first proclaimed Kami no Shinobi and possessed a power that made other enemy shinobi puke. Uzumaki Mito was regarded as the strongest member of the Uzumaki clan and possessed the ability to tame a Bijuu regardless of its strength. Not only that, but Mito was just as good as, if not better than, Hashirama in a taijutsu fight, and the two of them knew each other so well that they were practically unstoppable when they worked together. They did defeat Madara and the Kyuubi in the Valley of the End together, which spoke volumes about their strength and skill. Beating up a single Uchiha who lacked the experience to challenge either one alone, let alone both, was child's play for them. Obito, on the other hand, wasn't faring so well against Minato or Tobirama. Minato knew before he died that Obito was the one who attacked that night. It wasn't difficult to figure out when you realized that the way one fights can reveal the identity of the person attempting to conceal themselves. Minato had thoroughly trained his team and was aware of how they moved, acted, talked, and even fought during training sessions. Obito's fighting style took a short time to learn during their initial confrontation because it had been altered as a result of Madara giving the Uchiha a few sessions. Furthermore, Tobirama and Minato were regarded as the masters of all things related to space, time jutsus due to their use of fuinjutsu markers on the objects or bodies they marked. In fact, they had marked the lair extensively before revealing themselves for this fight, and were now taking advantage of it. Tobirama also knew about Obito's Sharingan ability to phase out of the physical plane or teleport to another location instantly, which he shared with Minato. Tobirama was also aware of the Sharingan's weakness in this regard, as it only kept someone phased out for a solid 5 seconds, and not a second longer. Something that both former Hokages were eager to exploit, forcing Obito to think defensively for a while, though the Uchiha was able to counter with the Rinnegan. "I don't think I'll ever get tired of using the Shinra Tensei," Obito remarked with a smirk, as he used the named attack on several incoming water dragons that Tobirama had launched his way. "Your skill with the Sage's Eye is impressive, but you are clearly unworthy of it," Tobirama said before teleporting behind Obito and moving in to strike him. Only for his fist to pierce him. "Unworthy? Who are you to think I'm unworthy of such power?" Obito demanded after resolidifying. Only to be met with a sidekick to the face by Minato. "Because you're using it for evil, Obito. Don't you realize how much pain and suffering you've caused over the years? Can you comprehend how many lives you ruined and killed for this Moon Eye plan of yours?" Minato asked, as Obito scowled at him. "What's the big deal? Everything is for Rin." Obito exclaimed, "I would kill 1,000 times more people if it meant I could have her back." Minato frowned. "Even if you succeed in bringing Rin back to life, how do you think Rin will react when you explain how you did it?" Minato asked, his teeth clenched. "Rin would have no idea what I did. I'm not going to tell her. And even if she did ask, I'd just lie about it," Obito said, raising an eyebrow at Minato. "You? Tell a lie to Rin? Obito, you could never lie to Rin to save your life. Though I suppose it's not really lying to Rin if the Rin in question is, in fact, a fake," countered Minato, with Obito looking murderous. "Rin will be genuine. She will be as real to me as I am to her. As genuine as the air we breathe. The ground we walk on is real. The only person who will not be a part of it is you and your annoyance of a son." Obito raged. "Do you think the real Rin will still love you after everything you've done? If she saw you here today, she'd hate you for it," exclaimed Minato, making Obito even angrier. "Stop talking. Stop talking. You don't understand. You still have your wife, so you don't understand what it's like to lose someone you love and never see them again. You don't truly understand pain until you've walked my path," exclaimed Obito, shaking his head at Minato. "But I know what it's like to lose someone, Obito. I am aware of pain. I died in order to save my son. My wife died while rescuing my son. No less from you and the Kyuubi. Those I trusted to raise and nurture my son later betrayed us. Before killing my son by setting Naruto on fire, they turned him into Konoha's punching bag. Obito, I understand your pain. My wife has experienced pain. My son understands pain better than any of us here. The only thing you have right now that the others don't is the mindset of a spoiled child who has been denied his favorite toy after it has been taken away from him. That's as sad as it is pathetic," Minato responded, with Obito now sporting an infuriated expression. "Shinra Tensei!" exclaimed Obito, raising his hand to target Minato. Tobirama exclaimed from behind Obito, "Water style, water cannonball jutsu." As the Uchiha used the power of the Rinnegan knowing the man couldn't use his Sharingan at the same time. The compressed ball of water flew straight through Obito's chest. Obito initially struggled to stand. He looked down at the spot in his chest where the pain had suddenly flared up. The Uchiha was aware that he could use the Izanagi to avoid death, as he had done when fighting Conan, but this would result in the loss of his Sharingan, phasing out when attacked, and the ability to teleport via the Kamui. On the other hand, Obito knew there was nothing he could do after being hit except fall over and die like any other person who had their chest blown open by a lethal projectile. Izanagi, Obito said quietly before reforming a second later, unharmed but without his Sharingan eye. He'd just have to get the other one from Kakashi to replace it once he was finished here. Foolish. You made your life a little bit longer. All for naught, Minato remarked as Obito frowned. Don't worry, sensei. I have a backup on standby. If there was one thing Kakashi did correctly, it was to ensure that nothing happened to the eye I gave him, Obito countered, Minato smirking. Yeah. Concerning that. I recently visited Konoha and had a run-in with my other failure as a student. He doesn't have his eye anymore, Minato replied, as Obito looked at him in horror. What? Obito exclaimed angrily. Yes. He begged me not to destroy it. Of course, since the man had ignored my dying wish for the protection of my son, I saw no reason to listen to him either, Minato reflected, recalling that night when he went to get Naruto's blood to be used as a means of reviving him. Flashback Konoha Hospital night. Kakashi was lying on the ground next to Jiraiya. Minato beat both of them bloody while Kushina dealt with Tsunade and the Anbu back in the building. Both the former Yondaime Hokage's teacher and student had underestimated the man's ruthless fighting prowess. Because of the man's history with them, they honestly didn't expect Minato to have the strength or conviction to fight them both. Jiraiya and Kakashi were mistaken in this regard. Surprised? You shouldn't be, because I know what you two idiots did to raise my son. Or rather, your failure to raise him, Minato said before kicking Jiraiya in the ribs for good measure. Sensei. You must comprehend. The village. It needed to. Kakashi replied, but was cut off by Minato's glare. Do not dare to address me as your sensei. You gave up that right a long time ago. Don't think for a second that I didn't find out about your time with the Uchiha boy. All the while, I was entrusting my son to someone who would rather stab him in the back or sabotage his training. You either abandoned my son when he was attacked by mobs or aided them when he almost gave those jerks the slip. Because he was late for protection detail for hours on end, mobs could easily form and try to harm him. Kakashi, you betrayed me. I do not tolerate traitors to my family, Minato replied as Kakashi struggled to move away from him. Minato-sensei, you don't get it. It was unavoidable. Jiraiya prophecy samas about what would happen to the Sandaime could have ended the world. Or changed it to a location where the village was not the strongest. Your son needed to be controlled. Begged Kakashi, as Minato frowned even more. Is that your excuse? That damn prophecy about changing or ending the world. Didn't you despise my son for the fox he was holding? I'm sure you did. Because of the Kyuubi, you despised my son. Naruto informed me of this, and I had the pleasure of hearing several of Danzo's root Anbu confess what they knew about your past actions after my son had finished with them. At the very least, you could look me in the eyes and give me a straight answer. For once in your miserable life, give me an honest answer as to why you did what you did to my son. Exclaimed Minato, as Kakashi became enraged and looked up at the man he once had the honor of learning under. Okay, fine. I'll admit it. I despised him. I hated Naruto. The Bijuu sealed within him took you and Kushina from me. After my parents died, you two were the only family I felt I had left. Then the fox attacked, the sealing occurred, and now the two of you are dead, with Naruto serving as a reminder of that horrible moment. Konoha was insulted every day that boy lived. An affront to those who died. An affront to both you and Kushina. If he hadn't been conceived, let alone born, Kushina wouldn't have been put in such a vulnerable position, and the fox would never have escaped," said Kakashi, shaking his head. "Your father was a wonderful man, Kakashi. Do you know why he was such a great man?" Minato inquired abruptly. "No. Besides, no one in Konoha regards him as such. And what's the point of bringing him up?" Minato scowled even more as Kakashi questioned him. Because he understood the importance of loyalty and friendship. What it meant to be a comrade to someone else. Konoha was a fool to treat him like trash because of his actions on that mission, in which he saved the lives of his fellow shinobi at the expense of the mission. "Do you know why that is, Kakashi?" Minato asked, as Kakashi shook his head no. "Because deserting your friends lowers you to the level of trash," Kakashi replied, while Minato nodded. "Excellent work. That much you recall. But I respect your father because he, like me, knew that shinobi missions come and go. They are only temporary. Friendship, loyalty to others, and fighting alongside you until the bitter end are not. It's invaluable. Do you get what I'm saying, Kakashi? Friendship between people is as valuable as gold, especially for shinobi who go out into the world and sometimes commit evil things in the name of good. In fact, I'd rather fight alongside a small group of weak but loyal shinobi from a minor village than stand shoulder to shoulder with an army of strong but backstabbing fools like the ones in Konoha. Because I know that the former will have my back in a pinch, whereas the latter would stab me in the back in an instant if the enemy made an offer," Minato replied as Kakashi glared at him. "He should have chosen the mission," Kakashi finally countered. "And then what? Let his comrades perish? Do you know that because he chose to save those jerks, the shinobi in his unit were able to settle down, form a family, and have their own children? To fill Konoha's ranks with prominent future ninja who would defend Konoha and keep her strong in the long run?" Minato asked, as Kakashi turned away from him. "I did," Kakashi said quietly, but Minato could hear him. "I'll admit, the mission he went on was important, but it wasn't end of the world important. You should have tried to help your father, but you chose not to out of fear of being shunned and eventually despised by the general public. As my poor son has been since birth because he is a Jinchuriki. The only difference is that where my son took his licks and kept marching on. You would have caved within the first week," Minato murmured before grabbing Kakashi's masked face and ripping off the headband. What are you doing?" Kakashi asked, terrified. "Isn't it self-evident?" "I'm removing your Sharingan," Minato replied before pulling out a kunai to perform the surgery on the man beneath him. "No. Don't. Minato-sensei, please. Obito gifted me with this eye. It's all that remains of him and Rin," pleaded Kakashi and fought him off, but the Junin was too weak to do anything. "You gave up the right to this eye and their friendship a long time ago," Minato replied before effectively pinning Kakashi down. "Excuse me, Minato-sensei. I apologize. I truly am." Kakashi whimpered as Minato's eyes hardened and the Junin swears he saw a strange fire dancing in the background of the former Kage's eyes. "I'm new to this whole surgery thing, Kakashi. Remember, there may be some momentary discomfort," Minato said before beginning his first surgical procedure on his former student. Flashback concludes. "No. No," yelled Obito, knowing that his power had been stripped from him, all because of his former sensei. "Obito, yes. You now have the ability to phase out of this dimension and teleport to wherever you want. Not even your Izanagi, which you learn to use in conjunction with the Senju blood Madara implanted in you and the Uchiha in your veins. the next time you are attacked. Only death will follow, Minato replied before pulling out one of his signature tri-prong kunai. You're not going to kill me. I am your pupil. I'm almost like your surrogate son. When Minato made his move, Obito braced himself to use the Rinnegan. You're forgetting one thing, Obito, Minato observed as Obito frowned. And what's that? Obito asked, smirking at Minato. I'm not your only foe. And he's now in your new blind spot, Minato replied before Obito turned around and saw Tobirama standing within his guard, ready to punch Uchiha in the face. The Uchiha clan never learned to be aware of their surroundings as a whole. Always using their eyes to counter that particular weakness, said Tobirama while Obito raised his right hand. Shinra ten-ah! Exclaimed Obito, only to find that the tri-prong kunai in Minato's hand was now piercing his own. Before the former Yondaime Hokage arrived, he stabbed Obito in his remaining eye into the brain with another kunai. Obito, farewell. Maybe, just maybe if you beg Rin hard enough when on the other side, she will forgive you for being stupid. But don't get too excited, Minato remarked as he sunk the kunai deeper into his former student's skull, and just to make sure it worked, he snapped the Uchiha's neck. One Uchiha down, Tobirama said as Minato burned the body, before the two of them looked over at the others and saw Sasuke on the ground, beaten an inch from his life. One to go, finished Minato before they walked over to Hashirama and Mito. Madara held far more stamina than this one too. Even when we worked together to defeat him in the Kyuubi. The only thing his descendant has over him is the darkness in his soul caused by the hatred that all Uchiha have in their hearts. Even now, this idiotic boy is filled with it, Mito commented as she noticed Sasuke had spit out some blood from his mouth and looked up at the two. Filthy Senju and Uzumaki. You should all be wiped out. Without mercy, all the way to the last child. The Uchiha clan was supposed to rule the world. The true heirs of the Sixth Path Sage. Sasuke defiantly exclaimed. Your clan desired to rule solely through power. Tyranny. Oppression. You would enslave the entire world and set fire to what you couldn't have. You take what you want and kill or destroy what others cannot have, countered Hashirama, who was sneered at by Sasuke. What about the loser you're now following? What's the difference between his and my intentions? Sasuke inquired before noticing Minato standing over him. The difference, Sasuke, is that my son will bring order and peace to the elemental countries through his rule. To keep yourself in power, you would simply cause more pain and suffering throughout the world. You'd kill your own children to ensure your own survival, Minato responded as Sasuke struggled to move. You make it sound like it's a crime to kill my own blood. But it isn't. Neither for me nor for the Uchiha clan. The only thing that matters is power. With power, I have the ability to choose who lives and who dies. With power, I transform into Kami in all things and decide what has the right to exist in my world, with madness in his eyes, Sasuke replied. A death world. You want to live in a world where nothing grows and everything burns to the ground, don't you? Mito remarked, while Sasuke laughed despite his body dying on him. I despise the world. It's full of people who aren't of Uchiha blood. People who believe they are superior to my clan. Then there's me. The world must burn and the majority of its inhabitants must perish in order for the rest of the world to be reminded of the greatness of the Uchiha clan. My magnificence! Sasuke exclaimed, believing that the world belonged to him and that he could destroy or enslave whatever he pleased. If only to kill everything that remained after the initial destruction. And it is for this reason that you are unfit to rule. Nobody wants to be in charge of the dead and corpses left behind by a moron like you. Minato remarked before stomping hard on Sasuke's face and turning his brains into mush along with the Sharingan. The Uchiha clan had become extinct. Uzu Tower. You appeared distressed, old man. Why? Naruto inquired, turning to face the now scowling former Sandaime Hokage. Naruto, you know why. Should I start referring to you as Sauron? Hiruzen fired back. You can call me whatever you want. I don't care any longer. I am both of them. However, neither.
Besides, what does my name matter to you?
You had never shown any interest in me before today. So why not begin now? Hiruzen's hand twitched in the desire to perform a lethal jutsu to obliterate the young man's body. I don't. I want you to die and be forgotten, Hiruzen retorted angrily. You still don't seem to realize that your rage toward me and, by extension, Kurama has been misdirected in the most idiotic of ways. That night, neither of us murdered your wife. Uchiha Obito did, replied Naruto, since he knew the truth of that night from Kurama and his parents. Your conception, your very pregnancy was what allowed Obito to play his hand, and take what I loved from me. Stated Hiruzen angrily while in partial denial to Naruto's claims. Please. Obito would have tried something whether or not my mother was pregnant. Besides, you don't really care if your wife is dead from that point forward. It's just another reason for you to despise me. You're angry because Konoha's plans, schemes, and plots to dominate the elemental countries have all backfired on him. Even after you passed away. Naruto countered with Hiruzen becoming even more enraged because his words were true. Konoha is supposed to be the most powerful. All of the other villages should be relocated or forced to pay tribute to us. That was so close to happening. After Minato was promoted to Hokage, I was going to be appointed to the Shinobi Advisory Council. I could have persuaded him to do what needed to be done, but the fool went to play hero and ended up killing himself in his prime. I was left to fill the void and carry on with the plan, Naruto chuckled cruelly as he replied to Hiruzen. It's a little difficult to do when former supporters like Homura, Kaharu, and Danzo see no reason to back you up in every decision you make. Especially since they could accomplish it on their own. It didn't help that Orochimaru was no longer in your corner when you needed him the most. Wasn't I supposed to be your trump card? You had my loyalty to carry out your will even after your death if you were properly molded to be the village's submissive weapon. To be like Yagura, the Mizukage, except I wasn't killing off bloodline users, and my reasons for starting a war were to unite the world under Konoha's banner in order to bring about order. An order in which everyone who wasn't from Konoha was a slave to me, while I was a slave to those who put me in power. Specifically, Homura, Kaharu, Danzo, and all of their successors in their beliefs about how I and others like me would be controlled by them because I was a Jinchuriki. Naruto frowned before turning to face the enraged former Sandaime Hokage and seeing the man's eyes burn with even more hatred. When the truth was exposed and in the open, it hurt the most. Naruto, that was your goal. You should have just accepted it with dignity and honor it deserves. Stated Hiruzen while Naruto turned fully and walked up to Hiruzen to look him right in the eyes. Would you in my place? Asked Naruto, with Hiruzen remaining silent, and it was clear to the Uzumaki that the man was refusing to answer with what little free will he had left in his body. Naruto had no intention of accepting the man's response. He wanted to hear the truth directly from Hiruzen. Naruto used the Ring of Power to unleash his will on the former Hokage, causing him to cry out in pain, fall to his knees, and stare up at the now angry Uzumaki's burning eyes. Hiruzen's mind was invaded by a powerful all-consuming command, which burned away any free will he had in his body, and he was forced to obey despite his feeble resistance. Get back to me. Answer me right now. No. No, I would not do it in your place. I would have resisted. Are you happy right now? Yelled Hiruzen before being thrown into a wall by an invisible force of power and only feeling pain as a result of the action. Hypocrite. Hiruzen, you are exactly that. The Kami no Shinobi, on the other hand. You are Kami the hypocrite. You're not even a true believer in your own damn cause or belief about how all Jinchuriki should be treated. It doesn't matter because there are no more Jinchuriki in this world, so the issue is effectively dead at this point, remarked Naruto, as Hiruzen collapsed to the ground and struggled to move. Naruto will cost you a lot of money. You have no right to wield this much power over Bijuu. Your life's mission is to be Konoha's weapon. Not the owner of the weapon, Hiruzen said before his face was grabbed by Naruto, who happened to be wearing an iron gauntlet around his right hand, with the ring of power shining brightly like the sun itself. Enough. I've had enough of your words and excuses for my actions when yours are no better. You tried to turn me into your personal weapon and failed horrendously. I am now the weapon holder, and you are the weapon I have chosen to wield against my enemies. Sarutobi Hiruzen, you will obey me until the end of time. You'll obedience me and kill my enemies. Do you get what I'm saying? Yelled Naruto, his power erupting from within him, and all Hiruzen could do was kneel in his current position and accept it while his very being felt consumed by fire. I understand. Master, Hiruzen whispered, his eyes glazing over for a split second at the command being forced into his mind to obey without question unless his master intended to change anything. Good. Because my spies have informed me of Danzo's plans to prevent me from ushering in a new era for the world. With the Akatsuki dead, word of it should reach the Kage summit soon, and he will no doubt use it to persuade them to fight me. Suna and Kiri will accompany me because Gaara will not harm an old friend like me, and Kiri is attempting to regain strength. Their bloodline civil war has caused significant damage to their village's military strength and reputation for attracting clients. Leaving Kumo and Iwa to work together with Konoha to stop me. The Tsuchikage is getting on in years, but I believe he is still the life's fence-sitter that everyone claims he is. My father, despite his shinobi, will not risk his shinobi against my clan, and when news of my father's return reaches Iwa, I may just find myself a suitable ally against Konoha. As for Kumo, they will be more inclined to agree since they will no doubt want at least 2 of the Bijuu back in their possession, and maybe a few of my Uzumaki clan members as well. Add to that my spies reporting the Raikage is secretly looking for my wife for her bloodline, and the potential my son possesses from both of us only makes matters worse. Fortunately, I have a plan to demolish any alliance Danzo might form, and you, Sarutobi Hiruzen, will be crucial in that regard. Naruto said this before releasing Hiruzen's face from his grasp.
What do you want from me, my lord? What is your order? In a semi-hypnotic state of submission, Hiruzen asked.
Simply put, old man.
You have work to do. Naruto replied, his eyes glowed with power at his command.
Oh yes. There was a lot of work to be done. Not only in terms of Hiruzen crashing the Kage summit, but also of bringing Hinata and his son back to Uzu so that they could all be a family again. Naruto would ensure their restoration and bring peace to the world under his rule. His wife would be the empress, and his only son would be the heir to an empire that would last until the end of time. It would be fantastic.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.